All right, we are moving on to the group discussion board for this week. And like I've told you in videos past, I designed these questions to be maybe a little bit controversial in nature. Not that we would have battles on the discussion board, but rather that it would spark interesting conversation that would encourage you to dig deeper in your own selves and expand your own viewpoint and really strengthen where you stand. So, kind of the theme of questions that I got after reading all of your responses was really that as a Christian counselor, what is our duty to other believers in regards to holding them to biblical standards? And I want to answer this in kind of a roundabout way. I've got a bunch of different points that I want to talk about, but I think as you listen to this and as you talk through this, eventually we're going to get to that answer. But we're gonna take a couple detours. We're gonna take the long way to get to that answer. So again, what's our duty to other believers in regards to holding them to a biblical standard? So the first thing that I want to do really briefly is explore the difference between a Christian counselor and a counselor who is a Christian, because there is a big difference. A Christian counselor is going to be somebody that is going to subscribe primarily to the nouthetic approach. So they are going to be somebody who advertises themselves as a Christian counselor. Most often, you're going to find Christian counselors in a specifically Christian counseling center where they advertise themselves to be that. Another like parachurch ministry or an actual church. Those are kind of going to be your top three places that a Christian counselor is going to work. Of course, they can work other places, but for that title, it's going to be a Christian counselor is going to work in one of those three places. A counselor who is a Christian is different than a Christian counselor in that they do not advertise themselves as being a Christian. They advertise themselves as a professional, and that being a Christian is part of who they are and as a person. And yes, they bring that into the counseling room when appropriate. They don't sway from those values in their personal life, but it's not necessarily something that they advertise. So, on a personal level, I do not consider myself a Christian counselor. I consider myself a counselor who is a Christian. What I feel for me personally is that it opens the door for me to be able to work with many different clients who would not necessarily want to come to a Christian counselor because they either have walked away from faith, maybe they are of a different religious background, maybe they're just not interested in spiritual things. But what I've found is that advertising myself simply as a marriage and family therapist who also happens to be a Christian, I am able to then come in contact with a really sweet variety of different people. Now, like we talked about last week, of course, I operate from a biblical worldview. So anything that I say is going to be met by God's truth. That all truth is God's truth. So I'm going to pull from everything that is true and bring that into the session. And so as a counselor who is a Christian, it is more... I'm able to do that on at a greater length or a deeper level. Whereas a Christian counselor, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just your preference and the type of clientele that you would like to be working with. A Christian counselor is going to pull primarily from the Bible. So, just wanted to differentiate and clarify the difference between those two types of therapists. Secondly, what is the purpose of you as a counselor? So, regardless of your ethnicity, religion, preferences, morals, values, etc., it is about the client who is in front of you and what they are bringing to the room. So, your purpose as a counselor is to meet them there. It is to join with them, to validate them, to meet with them in their journey, regardless of who they are and their background. But like we talked about in ethics, to look out for the best interests of your client, regardless of the background or the baggage that they bring into the room. I'm going to pause the video right here because I noticed that my words and my lips are not in sync. So we are going to pause the video and then we'll start a new one.